Hello and welcome to the first webinar from the Football Hub. So today we're just going to take a look at warm-up routines. Not take too long, just a bit of a short introduction, what we should be looking at, what kind of things we need to be thinking about when we're planning our warm-up routines, whether that be within our session or for pre-match, sort of before we kick off a game. So my name's Si Armstrong. I am the founder, content creator, website designer, developer, whatever you want to call it, for the Football Hub. And let's get into some warm-up routines, maximising performance. So welcome then. Warm-up routines should absolutely be in every single session. Now that should be every training session. We want to kick straight in, nice and active, get the body warmed up, get the muscles warmed up, get the blood flowing, get that cardiovascular system working, and certainly before matches when we're going to go into that sort of often that higher intensity kind of gameplay. Warm-ups are a massive part of what we do whenever we're delivering a session. A couple of key words on there just for us to sort of have a look at and unpick a little bit. So it's all about holistic player development. Our warm-ups should be engaging. They should be focused on getting everyone involved, improving all of our players as we go along, and not just sort of targeting one or two little areas. Let's use them to really sort of improve our players and use them almost like an extra drill where we're sort of working on something, but it's not so much coaching led. It's more about the activity and is it relevant to what we're going to be doing within the session. So as I said, get everyone involved. It needs to be fun. We need to kickstart that session with some fun, get the players involved, get them engaged, get them interested, get them eager to learn and eager to get involved with the session. Keep it dynamic. Don't have players standing around lining up in queues, and keep it dynamic, keep it engaging, keep it fun. It should be logical as well. So if we're doing a shooting drill, can we maybe do a little bit of passing just to get that kind of kicking in? And if we're going to do some defending, can we maybe incorporate some 1v1s, some sort of high intensity 1v1s to kind of, or build up to some high intensity 1v1s so that we're kind of focused on what our objective is for this session. Keeping it functional, yeah, so a warm up, gone are the days of jumping up and doing a header or putting left hand down, right hand down, touch the ground, all that kind of stuff. It's just not worth it. Doesn't work, doesn't contribute anything to the session, anything to the player's development, probably doesn't even get them that warm, to be honest. So keep it functional. Can we make it match specific, little sideways movements, shuffles, quick movements of the feet, lots of twists and turns, all that kind of good stuff that we do. Basically, when we're planning it, think about how we move in a football match and can we incorporate that into our warm-up. Can we get a ball involved? Such a good one. Now I like to start my sessions with sort of 4 or 5 minutes just without the ball, just to kind of build them up, start easing into those movements a little bit, but then still within the warm-up, introduce a ball, get those touches in, because the muscles that we're using to kick a ball, to pass a ball, to chest the ball, head it, whatever it might be, it's very difficult to work on those muscle groups without physically getting a ball, touching a ball, moving a ball, controlling a ball, all that kind of good stuff. So it's absolutely key that we get a ball involved when we're doing our warm-up session. And can we make it progressive? So can we naturally flow it into this session? If we're doing a bit of defensive work, can we do some 1v1s, make it engaging, keep it fun, keep it light, and then naturally progress into the rest of the session where we maybe build up to some 2v2s, some 3v3s, or working as a back four, working as a defensive unit, whatever it might be. So then a quick look at what we're going to run through within this webinar. Contents for today, we're going to go through the significance of a warm-up, why it is significant. Some of the components of what makes up a good warm-up. We've just discussed very briefly a couple of good points there that we should be looking to incorporate, but what does it look like? Can we tailor it to the age group and ability of the players that we've got? And what are a couple of different types of warm-ups. They do come in different sort of variations. There's plenty of different types and styles, so we'll have a little look at that. And we've got some Q&As at the end where just a few sort of common questions related to warm-ups that we're going to unpack a little bit and just have a look at. And then lastly, we'll finish off with a summary. So the significance of an effective warm-up. Well, it's absolutely vital for injury prevention. Injury prevention is probably the most important bit, although kids are, if we're coaching young kids, generally they're a little bit more flexible, a little bit more, they sort of bounce when they fall down and they heal quite quickly. but we've still got to have a duty of care to prevent injuries. They will still get pulled hamstrings if they've not warmed up properly, and it'll take them out of the game for a couple of weeks, or they could roll their ankle if they're maybe not warm and their muscles aren't sort of taking the weight of their body, that type of thing. So it's absolutely vital that we do it from an injury prevention point of view. Not only is it going to help us not let the kids get hurt, but obviously it's going to retain our players as well and mean that we don't have to go maybe weeks at a time without some of our key players. Motivation, it's a great one to get players motivated. When we're warming up now, a warm-up could be a pre-match routine. That whole, you could sort of 30 minutes before a match kicks off, that could be classed as your warm-up, I suppose, for the game. It is a vital sort of motivational piece in there to get our players kicked into gear, get them engaged, get them wanting to play, and just sort of build them up a little bit. So it's great to use a warm-up for motivation, and it can give them a little insight to this session. If you're doing training and you're doing part of your warm-up, use it to get them motivated, show them what it's going to be a little bit about, and get them interested, get them engaged. Psychological readiness, absolutely. So it's all about getting that high performance out of them, getting them ready, mentally psyched up, ready for the game so that they're focused, so they've got the energy, the adrenaline's ready, and they can kickstart straight into that match or that training session, whether it be at the start or ready to play. And achieve peak performance, yeah, so our bodies operate 100 times better. Don't quote the 100 times, but our bodies perform a lot better when they're warmed up and they're ready to go. It's the same as a car engine. If you imagine a car engine, they never run great in the winter. They're always coughing and spluttering and struggling to start and stuff. Our bodies are no different. They need to be warmed up. They need to be well lubricated, hydrated, and they need to be in peak physical condition, ready to go. So use the warm-up to get to that point, get your players to that point. Don't just expect them to roll out of bed, throw some breakfast down their neck and jump on the pitch and perform. They need to warm up, their bodies need to adapt and get ready and build up, ready to play. So warm-ups, you can see there, they increase blood flow, optimising muscle function, flexibility and reaction time. Gradual elevation of heart rate and body temperature prepares the cardiovascular system, enhancing overall athletic performance. Studies consistently link effective warm-ups to reduce injury risks, making them a crucial component for player well-being and peak on-field performance. So when should you warm up? So we touched on it briefly. The start of every session, it's absolutely vital. Every session we're going to be working, we're going to be active, we're going to be pushing our players to improve and to develop and push further. So it's vital that we warm them up effectively at the start of every session. And for at least 10 to 15 minutes, a quick 5-minute warm-up is no good. But what I would say is sort of 5 minutes maybe without a ball, just to kind of get the muscles going, build up that intensity a little bit. And then the rest of our warm-up can be a little bit more sort of towards a drill based, where we're kind of maybe a little bit lower intensity, but we're starting to get into things now. We're starting to move a ball, we're starting to play a little bit. And before a match, we're looking at ideally about 30 minutes. This depends on the age of your players and whether they need it, whether you've got the pitch space sometimes. Often with leagues, certainly in the UK, you'll have a match time of 12 o'clock and you won't get on the pitch till 12 o'clock. So you have to find a little bit of space at the side of the pitch, or there maybe isn't space, and you might find that you're trying to warm players up in the car park or on a little bit of grass outside the pitch, and it's just not ideal. What we're looking for really is a little bit of space where we can just spend about half an hour just to kind of build the players in. We can incorporate our team talk into that. We can do a little bit of sort of mental preparation and get our pre-match routines and practice in there. But we need the time, and we need to find the time to do that before games. Obviously, the younger ages, they're not quite as reliant on it. They're probably not as injury risk, not as big an injury risk, sorry. So it's not as vital that we get that 30 minutes, but certainly sort of 5-10 minutes for the younger sort of up to under 8, under 10 sort of ages. And more than anything, it's a good introduction to what they should be doing. Set the habits early on. Get players warming up and cooling down and stuff from a young age, and they will carry that with them into their senior playing days as well. So it's vital that we just build those good habits. Warm-ups are the most vital part of any session and can be merged with exercises surrounding your session objective. Yep, so we've sort of mentioned that. Consider environmental conditions when you're starting a warm-up. If you can't get straight onto the training pitch, keep the early birds warm with some fun sideline activities. Yeah, absolutely. We always have players that turn up early and they'll either stand and chat around, which is great during the summer because they get all the chat out of the way, and it means when the session starts, they are good to go and they should be focused and paying attention. What we do find in the winter is normally it's obviously a little bit colder. We'll give them a ball, we'll get them moving a little bit. They can still stand and chat and catch up and stuff, but depending on your age, it's not cool for teenagers to wear jackets in the winter. So absolutely get them a ball, get them playing, get them moving. A lot of people say laps are no good. Laps are great, I think, personally, if you are not using it as part of your session and it's a sort of 5 minutes before you start to give the coach time to set up, and the girls or the boys can just take 5 minutes, go and do a lap or two and just take it nice and steady, get all that chat out of the way and just get a little bit of a feel for it. Nothing too intense, you're not looking at risking injury or anything like that. But it's an effective, and it's a little bit of a team building thing more than anything. It is not going to make them fitter. It's not going to improve their cardiovascular fitness or their leg strength or anything like that. It is literally just to give the coach time to set up and to get the players engaged and chatting and getting all that kind of catch-up session out of the way. So components to a warm-up then. What not to do. So static stretches are an absolute no. Static stretches are no good before a match. The scientific studies have shown that static stretches before a match can actually, or a training session, can actually decrease performance rather than increase it or help it. So not only are they no use before a match, they could actually have the adverse effect of making your players perform worse and less than peak performance. So just stay away from them. Static stretches are fine for a cool down at the end, where you may be reflecting on the game, get them doing some calf stretches or hamstring stretches, whatever it might be, but keep them out of the warm-up. Quite often we see teams as a warm-up, they'll go and do a lap and they'll sort of run to one corner and they'll stand and do some static stretches, and then they'll run to the next corner and they'll stand and do some more. Just don't do it. If they're going to do stretches, that's fine, but make them dynamic. Keep them moving, the muscle moving and constantly and engaged. So it's pushing into that stretch, but it's not sort of just staying there and holding it. That's what we mean by static stretch, is holding the stretch at a point of discomfort. Keep it dynamic, so you're pushing into the stretch so you can feel the stretch, and then you're sort of coming out and relaxing off and then pushing back into it, maybe pushing a little bit further each time. But it's all about getting those muscles kind of pumping and active, not static and still. Standing around, absolutely no standing around. I'm not even going to say minimize standing around, just get rid of it. There should not be cues in a warm-up. Players do not warm up by standing in queues waiting to go and do an activity or move a ball or pass or do anything. So lines are fine if you're going to have lines, but make sure it's a consistent flow of players going through. Don't have them sort of standing just waiting to engage in an activity, because it's no good. It's not going to warm them up. And if they do warm up when they do the activity and then they go back and they stand in a queue, all they're doing is cooling their muscles down and putting themselves at more risk of an injury. Laps, we've sort of discussed, they can be effective to sort of help coaches set up, get all that chat out of the way, but they're not good as part of a warm-up, so don't include them as part of that element of your session. Press-ups, absolutely not. They've got no functional place in football whatsoever. All they're going to do is build chest strength and a bit of arm strength, which is great if you're building that physicality, but keep it off the football pitch. We only get a certain amount of time with our players each day or each week to develop them. Don't waste it doing press-ups, because it is not going to improve their game. Doing 20, 30, 40, 50 press-ups in a training session is not going to help them improve their game, improve their strength, improve their physicality. It's just not going to happen. If they want to improve that element of their game, great, but they need to do it off the pitch when you're not trying to develop their football skills and their ability. Press-ups as a punishment, again, I would never use press-ups. There's much more fun, engaging and arguably more physical exercises that you can use, such as star jumps and more dynamic, more fun burpees. Although it's still incorporating an element of a press up, is a little bit more fun. You can have a little bit of a laugh with it while you're doing it as well. Cues of players, yeah, sort of comes in with standing around. Don't have players queuing up waiting to take a turn and engage in an activity. And static drills, passing in a circle. This is an absolute pet peeve of mine. Or even, so I see a lot of coaches do passing back and forth between the players as part of the warm-up. Now that is great if it's a controlled, delivered warm-up. Often what we see is a coach set players up where they're passing with a partner, just back and forth, and then the coach goes off and starts setting up the next drill. Or the assistant maybe does a little bit and he's not quite as sort of engaged with the players. Players will stand there in one spot and not move and just pass, bang, bang, bang. It's no use, certainly as a warm-up. It's great that they're getting a ball and they're engaging with the ball, but get them moving. Can they show for the ball? Can they move? Are they on their toes? Keep them dynamic, keep them functional, keep them engaged. And you need to push them to do that, because players will just stand still in a spot facing each other and pass the ball back and forth. So the coach needs to really, really push this and make sure that they get engaged and they get on with it properly. How it should look then, so as we mentioned, dynamic movements. As you can see in the video there, the old opening and closing the gate, fantastic exercise to sort of get the groin moving, get those hip flexors engaged. It's an excellent exercise, but that is the type of movements you're looking for. One of my teams, we do shoe the chickens, where you sort of stretch the hamstring and you kind of push your arms up to shoe the chickens, and just little movements like that that can keep players moving, but they're pushing those stretches and they're engaging muscles that they're going to use in a game or a session. As I said, yeah, functional to the game or session. It's got to be relevant. Twists and turns are great. Don't be stretching arms off and stuff like that. You don't need the physical strength in your arms unless you're a goalkeeper, clearly. But you don't need physical strength in your arms or your arms warmed up to play football. Not to the point that we need to waste warm-up time stretching them. Yep, keep everyone engaged and moving. Incorporate a ball as much as possible. Even if it's just dribbling, they will build technical skills and develop as players by doing that. And they're moving and using movements that they will use in a match. Building intensity, absolutely. So don't go from a cold start straight into, right, I want you to sprint. Generally what I would do is we'll start at sort of 40-50% if we're going to do any running. We'll maybe do some exercises out to some cones. We'll vary it each time. And then we'll have a cone that's a little bit further away for the end. And we'll say, right, once you get to the last cone, you're going to do about 40% to the white cone, whatever it might be, the last cone. And then we'll gradually build that up. And after a couple of times at 40%, we'll maybe jump to 50 or 60%. And then by the last one, when we're just about ready to move on to something else or get a water break, then we'll maybe do, right, this time we're going to do 100%. Give it absolutely everything, and that's when we know that the players are warmed up, they're engaged, and they can put that peak performance in. But why? The big why. So scientific research has shown that performance is actually worse when conducting static stretches, more so than not stretching at all. Incorporating a ball warms up the appropriate muscles and improves ability whilst engaging players mentally. You will have seen it, or if you've played football yourself, or even just played five-a-side, you do not realise how active you are or how hard you're working when you've got a ball at your feet. If I could go and run a 5k just with a ball at my feet, I wouldn't even notice the 5k. Our brain just switches off to the pain or the fatigue or whatever you want to call it. Engages with the ball, thinks about the ball, tries to improve what we're doing with the ball, or certainly in a match, if we can get little rondo type drills on for the warm-up, we're thinking about players, we're thinking about movements, where are our teammates, where's the goal, loads and loads of different things that sort of take our focus away from working hard, and it makes it more enjoyable. At the end of the day, that's what players are there for, because they want to improve with a football at their feet. How it looks. So here's 4 ideas to give you a flavour for a good warm-up exercise at the start of your session. So these are just a couple of examples that we use or have used in the past. So first up, you've got the extended line, an opportunity for everyone to engage and get the chat out the way. So all this is basically one straight line of players, which means they're all engaged and they're just moving out to a certain point. You can maybe have a couple of cones down as markers if you want them to change exercises, or and you're basically just going to use various mobility exercises such as opening and closing the gate and build that intensity whilst introducing different movements. You can add a ball at the end to get some touches in and some control practice as well. But this is a great way to get everybody engaged and everybody working straight. Next option we've got the vertical line as well. So you basically split the team into 2 or 3 or 4. You can split it however you like. I generally will split it in 2 or 4 normally. Just keeps teams even. If we're sort of going on to maybe a passing exercise, I might split it and have like 3 in each line. But there's loads of different ways you can split it down. Conducting various mobility exercises between the cones. It's great for introducing sort of sideways movements and building intensity with a natural progression into passing exercises. So if you set your cones out properly, you can do sort of exercises out to the cones, and then you can incorporate a ball, stick a player on each cone, and then they can start doing passing and movement exercises in there as well for a nice natural progression. Technical boxes, certainly for the younger players. Box warm-ups are great before a session and can be adapted to work on elements relevant to your session objective, with lots of ball contact and realistic game movements. Yeah, as I said, players don't think about what they're doing when they're moving with the ball at their feet, so get them a ball, get them moving. They're thinking of their own movements, so again, they're concentrating on what they're doing and not so much about the exercise or the fitness or whatever. It's a great way, certainly for younger players, to work on different turns, different ways of stopping the ball, different ways of controlling the ball, the inside of the feet, outside of the feet, inside and outside turns, like step overs, rolling, drag backs, all sorts of different things. There's loads and loads of work we can do in technical boxes. And then lastly, we've got passing exercises as well. So passing exercises can be perfect when incorporated with another warm-up or exercise. Ensure they're dynamic with players making lots of movements. As I said before, do not have players standing static, passing back and forth, as this is just unrealistic. But basically, all this drill is the player in the middle passes up to the player, plays a little 1-2 with the top player. The top player moves round the pole to receive the ball again and then drives on to play the same sort of exercise with the person opposite. It's a great way to sort of build in some ball control, build in some passing practice and some movement as well. So would highly recommend building that into your warm-ups. Pitching at the right level. Yeah, so as players sort of grow older and wiser and more mature, more physical, stronger, fitter, we need to adapt our warm-ups. And there's different focuses at different age groups and levels. So when we're looking at junior levels, we're looking at sort of under 6 to under 12. We want to keep it fun and active and try and incorporate lots of ball contact time and play. Standing around is a definite no at this age. They will lose interest and get bored, and there is nothing worse than bored young under 6s because they will just run riot. It'll be like herding cats. So keep them engaged, keep it fun, make it into a game. Absolutely avoid lines. They just don't work at that age. And you'll spend more of your time trying to get them in line and trying to keep them standing in line than you will them actually playing or doing anything. So consider starting with some box drills or fun games that work on agility and technical skills. And as we move up to the youth sort of levels, so under 13 to under 18s, we're sort of looking at 11 aside now, or certainly 9 aside and above. Injury prevention becomes more prevalent and effective warm-up is key. Encourage them to turn up early and get catching up out of the way, or consider a relaxed warm-up that builds in intensity. Yeah, so as we said, that catching up kind of piece at the start can be a real sort of session breaker if players aren't listening or they're not engaging because they're too busy catching up with their mates. So try and get them to arrive early, or incorporate it into your warm-up if you need to sort of keep a low intensity one. Like as I said with the laps, where they can sort of chat and sort of jog around a little bit together, or a little bit of a passing in partners thing. If you don't mind giving up 5 minutes at the start of the session, it can get all that way and mean that they're more engaged, more focused when you start the proper session. Mobility and ball work are still a vital component once we hit this age. Try to keep it interesting and varied. Don't repeat the same thing every week. I have a number of different warm-ups they can be similar, but keep it different. Don't turn up and do the exact same exercises every time. And if you do find it's going a little bit stale and stagnant, then just Google it, YouTube some different exercises or a variation of an exercise that you've been doing or something, just to keep them engaged, keep them mixed up. At this age, they still need to have that sort of change. If you just do the same thing all the time, I hear it from so many players about their coach just does the same thing week in, week out, not just about warm-ups, about drills and I understand that you need to keep working at things for a few weeks for it to stick, but just working on the same thing because players aren't getting it isn't going to help anything, and it just means they'll get bored and they won't develop. So mix it up a little bit, make it fun, keep it engaging, keep it lighthearted, and the players will adapt into the session a lot better. Once we get to senior level then, it's very similar to youth, but with a more structured routine now. So mixing the warm-up around each session is less important. Players should now, by this age, understand the importance of injury prevention. Consider splitting them into position-specific groups for warming up. So we can have our attackers sort of building in some movement, some sort of penetrating runs, and defenders, we can maybe have them doing a little bit of shuffling and jockeying and that type of thing. So we can split them that way if we need to, depending on the size of the squad. But it's certainly worth looking at. Players now, by this point, they still need to be engaged and interested because they just won't come back to training. Or they'll go and find a club that does make things interesting, but it's not quite as important. They understand that maybe your first 5-10 minutes is just sort of mundane and needs to be done to prevent injury. Different types of warm-up then, so we've discussed a couple of them already. They come in various shapes and sizes, so we're just going to cover a few of the different types and how we can use them for maximum effectiveness. So pre-match, match day is the most intensive work that a player will do, so it's only right that we warm up effectively. Incorporate match-specific muscles such as the neck, hips, hamstring and core. These are all vital parts that we move, whether it be for twisting and turning or that explosive speed that we need to get up the wings, whatever it might be. And consider a specific warm-up for the goalkeeper as well. A lot of these muscle groups, the goalkeeper is going to get warm and they're not really going to use them that much. Whereas if you just throw them in with the rest of the outfield players, you're potentially going to risk them getting an injury if you're not stretching the core and getting the arms involved, getting the neck involved, all that kind of stuff. So certainly get the goalkeepers doing their own specific warm-up. They can do it with the rest of the team. And sort of be part of that team, part of that warm-up, but certainly they need their own specific exercises. Sessions start. So more relaxed but still vitally important. These warm-ups should attempt to centre on your session objective. If you're working on defensive principles, can we incorporate jockeying or pressing into our warm-up? So a little bit more detail on the types of warm-up then. So we've got dynamic warm-ups. Whether it be stretching or ball work, movement is our friend. Warm-ups are a great opportunity to practice fundamental skills and movements. It focuses on fluid, controlled movements that take joints and muscles through their full range of motion. So this is a great one to work with players and improve their sort of technique. Really sort of focus on how they're making their movements. Are they getting through that full range of motion, or are they stopping short? If they're stopping short, then can we try and show them the correct technique and get them to gradually push them? It might be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's designed to be, and the more they do it, the more they will improve, and they'll be able to use that full range of motion when they're playing on game day. Includes exercises like leg swings, arm circles, high knees, and walking lunges. Enhances flexibility, improves circulation, and prepares muscles for dynamic movements on the field. So that is a dynamic sort of warm-up. Next up, we've got a cardiovascular warm-up. So it involves light aerobic exercises to gradually increase heart rate and circulation. Activities such as jogging, skipping, or shuttle runs are effective for elevating the cardiovascular system. Boosts oxygen delivery to muscles, enhancing endurance and stamina during the game. So yeah, we need to give ourselves that kind of jump start before kick-off. But don't expect, when we're doing this cardiovascular work as part of a warm-up, we're not looking to build fitness here. We're looking to get ourselves warm so we can get peak performance throughout a training session or a match. The match is where it's going to improve fitness, and the training session is going to improve fitness. We shouldn't be looking to improve fitness during our warm-up because it defeats the purpose. We need to warm up before we can improve our fitness. Ball related then, so it integrates the ball into warm-up exercises to improve ball control and touch. Involves dribbling drills, passing sequences and movement. These shouldn't be complex or difficult to follow. We don't want lots of standing around where we have to explain our warm-up to the players. What we want is something that's simple. They've maybe done it before, they can pick it up straight away, and it's not overly complicated. They can sort of muscle memory their way through it. Helps players get accustomed to ball handling while warming up muscles and joints. Next, we've got agility and coordination. Emphasises quick footwork, changes of direction and spatial awareness. These can still include a ball, add an opposition to build intensity through competition, and consider coaching players how to be more agile with their movements. It enhances agility, coordination and neuromuscular activation, crucial for the dynamic nature of soccer play. So yeah, when we're building our agility and stuff, it's certainly a technique that we can coach. Maybe even consider bringing in a sort of strength and conditioning coach that can do a bit of work on agility and coordination if you've got the resources at your club to do that. But certainly, yeah, use a ball, get them engaged, but it's such an important one in football now. Players need to have the balance, the coordination, the core strength to do this kind of stuff. So it's vitally important that we build that into our warm-ups. It's important to note as well that a comprehensive warm-up routine may combine different elements from these types of it to address various aspects of player preparation. Effective planning will help incorporate more than one type of warm-up into a session, or can be progressively brought in over a number of sessions depending on the objective. So you don't have to hit all 4 of those types, the cardiovascular, ball-related, agility, and dynamic. They don't all need to be in one warm-up, but can we hit 1 or 2? Can we get 2 or 3 into a warm-up? If you can get 4, send it to me because fantastic. But generally we can get most of them in there and make a really effective warm-up. So just a couple of questions then before we finish up. Can I use static stretching in my soccer warm-up? While static stretching has its benefits for cooling down post-match, it's recommended to focus on dynamic stretching in a football warm-up. Dynamic stretches better mimic the movements of the game, improving muscle elasticity without compromising power and speed. What is the role of ball-related exercises in a warm-up? Well, ball-related exercises and warm-ups help players improve ball control, touch and get accustomed to handling the ball in various situations. It combines skill development with physical preparation. Balls, more than anything, just get players focusing on the ball and the movements and what they're doing rather than the boring exercise that you want them to do, the high knees or the opening the gate or whatever it might be. They all have a place, but put a ball at a player's feet and they will naturally open and close the gate as they try to beat their mate 1v1. So absolutely involve a ball in your warm-up as much as possible. The players will love it, they'll be engaged, they'll enjoy themselves, and they'll work a lot harder than you could ever get them to work without a ball at their feet. How often should I change my warm-up routine? It's beneficial to change your warm-up routine regularly to prevent monotony and ensure that all muscle groups are consistently activated. Consider adjusting it every few weeks to maintain effectiveness. Generally, I hate having one session after the other with the same warm-up, so I will try and mix it up every session, but I might have sort of 3 or 4 warm-ups on the go where Monday we might do an extended line with some exercises and a ball, and then Wednesday I might do 2 lines where we do some exercises and a ball, or the following week I might go straight in with a rondo and then we'll go into some lines, or just mix it up. It doesn't have to be the same thing every week. Once the players get to know that 3 or 4 that you like to use, they will get used to it, they'll get into it, it'll just become routine, and it'll go without any hitches. So that's us nearly at the end then. So just in summary, lose the laps and the bleep tests, get creative and keep it engaging. Your players will thank you and so will their performances. Mix it up every now and then to avoid monotony and keep it relevant to your session. Get a ball involved as much as possible. Warm-ups are the one constant when we train. We might have a rondo in every session, but we're going to miss it every now and then. We might do some tactical play, but not every session. We should absolutely have a warm-up in every session and before every match. Any physical activity that we do, we should have a warm-up before we kickstart. Hopefully that's given you some ideas. Hopefully you will go away having watched this webinar with a better understanding of what is important about a warm-up, and hopefully you've got something out of it. Join us next month when we're going to be looking at the 4 corners model. We'll see you then. Thanks very much.